Marco. Welcome to the 16th, do you believe that, 16th Techno Crime Fighters
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
And this is Romola, who's just come on the scene. Hi, Romola. On this Techno Crime Fighter Forums, if you're new to this, this is mostly aimed at. And here we.
Another computer.
We have three of our Techno Crime Fighter Forum team. We have Romola D, famous writer and journalist. We have Dr. Catherine Horton, particle physicist, and then we have Karen Melton Stewart, who is an ex-NSA employee and accidental whistleblower, she calls herself, which is a great title. Today we're going to spend the first hour talking about progress. And I know that people listening to this are either targeted individuals or people who are interested in this problem and want to help us. So this will be really good information. The first hour we're going to talk about progress made by the investigation team in various areas and things that have come up this week and things that are unfolding. And then, if we're lucky, and I think we probably will be, in the second hour, we're going to have Frederick LaRoche on. Now, Frederick was highlighted in a story by Catherine Horton a couple weeks ago about his being framed and put into a psychological home because of nefarious circumstances. But he'll be here to explain what's going on there. So I'll stop talking and let's get into the forum. Catherine, would you like to start and tell us your exciting news?
Yes. So here's the update of what has been happening, because we all have been working flat out, actually. Before I get into the actual nitty-gritty details, I would like to announce that we have a new website, and I am actually thinking I should probably put it into the chat. Either Mindy has the link, or I will put it into the chat here. Hang on. So the Joint Investigation Team. A new website. So the Joint Investigation Team's new website is jointinvestigation.org. So people can. Okay, so people can go there, and I'm not sure if you can actually see that in the chat. It tells me that I have to. Yes, that's it. That's it. Thank you. So Mindy's just posted jointinvestigation.org. That's the new home of the Joint Investigation Team. There you can find, at the moment, the profiles and a rough description of what we do and what we are setting out to do. For those people who don't know, the Techno Crime Fighters Forum is the weekly report of actually the Joint Investigation Team, which is a US-Europe collaboration between high integrity, high profile people, and we are running this criminal investigation in total absence of any sort of police initiative into the matter. And these crimes have become so prolific, so extensive, that individuals who have the right qualifications have to get on the case themselves. And the joint investigation is now, as I said, between US and Europe. So 3 of us are in the US. Melanie Richan is in Belgium. I'm in Switzerland. But I am, because of the targeting on me happened in Germany and the UK as well, I'm involved in all 3 countries and what's happening in those. And what we are planning to do as the joint investigation team is, because this criminal investigation, this crime syndicate is so vast, no investigative team can do it on their own. So we are also asking for people in other countries, and even in the countries where we are involved, to imitate us and also launch their own private initiatives, private criminal investigations, and put together the evidence and try to help the victims, you know, in this time period where the police is totally suspended, effectively. So over the coming weeks, we are going to put out information material. So when people go to the jointinvestigation.org website, there's one section called reports, and we are going to release reports bit by bit. And we will try to write up little documents about all the different aspects of targeting. So the idea is that once it's been certified by the Joint Investigation Team, people can actually, download these documents and put them up. I think I'm getting some sort of feedback. I'm not sure. I think it's maybe, is it your mic? Okay, sorry. I think this is my computer here.
No, it's not bad, Catherine. It's not
Okay.
bad. Also, we're going to put the link to your new website, the jointinvestigationteam.org, below all subsequent Techno Crime Fighter forums.
Fantastic. And what this is meant to be is the Joint Investigation Team is working on a public interest investigation. And for this reason, all our work is public. We have to be 100% transparent, and also our work results will be public. So when we are publishing these reports, they are to inform those bits of law enforcement who are genuinely uninformed, who are not corrupt, but genuinely have been kept in the dark, but also members of the public. So whoever wants to read these reports can read them and also download them. And the idea is that whatever we put out is certified by us 5. It's the best of our current knowledge. And the idea is that as soon as you get a report, you can print it off and take it either to your local police station or use it in court or whatever. So really trying to pull the best of our research and also other people who help us and condense it down to the key facts that you need to know and that you need to also take to your police station and also to the courts should you want to sue these criminals. So that's the idea. So the Joint Investigation Team reports are forthcoming, so watch that space and subscribe to the website. We also have a Twitter feed, actually. So all the Twitter feed is linked on the front page. And the actual, because these are news flashes that we'll be releasing, the actual Twitter address is @JITFlash. And because we are shedding light on the darkest corruption and the darkest crimes, our logo is a little flashlight, a little torch. So there we are. That's the team, the public face of the team. Also, this week we have been working quite hard to get, to actually help individual cases, and the most urgent individual case is really that of Dr. Millicent Black. So what I did this week, at the start of this week, is I also contacted the UN Special Rapporteur for Torture. And last October, the Special Rapporteur changed. So now it's Niels Melzer, who is a Swiss guy. And he, I think he was voted into office, I think it was October or November, and he replaced Juan Mendes. Now, Juan Mendes has already been informed extensively about the case of Millicent, and there was absolutely no assistance forthcoming. When I spoke to him, and I spoke to him after I've seen several emails where both he and I were CC'd in, and I said, "Are you familiar with that case?" He says, "Yes, well, that rings a bell, but I'm not sure if we decided to act or if we acted in that case or not." Given that this is one of the worst cases of torture that we've ever witnessed outside of Guantanamo Bay, I cannot fathom how this man cannot remember, if he's acted or not, where the last time he heard about this via email was just a few weeks ago. So I am bracing myself when we're dealing with the UN. I'm bracing myself for the worst amount of corruption that we can be faced by. We have to remember that these are the people who put out these agenda, this and that, massive genocide plans. So that's what I call them. So, but anyway, I'm going to hold out. Because I think Ramola has more details on that. I think Niels Melzer has already done a lot of work. I think was it to do with human rights and these weapon systems?
Yes, he's got a book out, at least if you look at the bio on that website, which highlights the Special Rapporteur for Torture. It says that his book was on targeted killing in international law. So if that's his specialty, then he's precisely the person we need to talk to, because these are targeted killing programs, right? Around the world. Not just in the US, but definitely around the world as well. It's kind of astonishing that you haven't heard from him as yet, because you wrote to him twice, right?
I did, and also, I mean, his case is very curious. So that's why I'm holding out. And exactly now, I knew there was something about the book title that was spot on. I just didn't know the title. So yes, you're right. So imagine we have a guy who's an expert on international law and targeted killing. So that's exactly what we need. He is the person we need to work with. But then there was something odd about his appointment, because when I researched him, I came across these reports that Switzerland refused to sponsor him. So when people become special rapporteurs to the UN, they are, it's kind of like an honorary post, and it doesn't come with a salary via the UN. And then the convention is that the home country sponsors him. And Switzerland seemed to refuse to sponsor him. So that's a bit odd. So he doesn't sound like a system guy to me, because usually the system guys, they get money thrown at them and just go and whatever, just, be corrupt for us, So when there's no money, it already is a good point, if there's any sort of resistance. So let's see, it could be fake news reports put out, but I'm holding out hope. Also, what's really good is that he, I think, is located in Geneva, here in Switzerland, and I'm in Switzerland. So I can, if there's any meeting happening, I can get in touch with him. And he has got, just to finish off, he's got, I think eventually he was given a position as a professor of Glasgow University. So I contacted him also via his Glasgow contacts. And when I also phoned the law faculty of Glasgow, and they said, well, he doesn't have an office here, he doesn't have a telephone, so you have to go via the UN. So that's it. I tried to reach out. I certainly sent him emails, and we just have to wait and see what he says. But I think he does have the powers to actually investigate himself and also report back to the countries.
Yes, Catherine. And as you know, we talked a little bit about doing some kind of joint letter to him, right, on the basis of this of our team, but also as representatives of others. And perhaps what we should do, I know you've made several efforts to get in touch with him, but perhaps what we should do is also give it a shot, all of us, sort of put our weight behind it and send him emails ourselves and try to contact him. I think it's really vital to contact him.
Yes, I think if we want to have this wrapped up in a civilized manner, in other words, when the special rapporteur on torture is not going to do anything about egregious torture, what is he isn't worth his salt, So yes, he has to help us, and also, we have all our national police services, all the national intelligence agencies, and the military seem to be in deep capture. So, it has to be somehow using supranational organizations to somehow pull out. Mm-hmm. And of course, we think, oh yes, well, the UN, might be totally corrupt, but I suspect that Millicent met good guys in the military and also the police, and this is exactly what I expect. I expect a patchwork. I expect domains of corruption and domains of high integrity. So we have to kind of reach out to all people in all these organizations and get the people in domains of integrity. But you're right, we should contact him as a joint investigation individually.
Let's have his email so that everybody's watching this and everybody's watching it on YouTube later can send him a little email. What is his name? His name's Neil Smelter.
Yes, so I'm going to type it in. I'm going to type it into the public chat, actually. And I think I've got his email in Glasgow. So Neil Smelter. And I think he should be able to reply to his email in Glasgow. Hang on. Yes, I'm going to post it in the chat in a moment. So just excuse me for a moment whilst I search for this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we'll post it below then. We'll post it below this video also. Okay. He's a special investigator on torture. Interesting job.
He's the special rapporteur for torture. I guess that's a word that means reporter, possibly. Not entirely.
Yes, so he has these reporting functions. I found, so I'm posting now in the public chat, the, oh God, it says remove any web addresses and try again. Oh, come on, what is this? I'm not allowed to post web addresses into the chat. Okay, I'm going to post it here and maybe Mindy can post it.
You also post it below. Yeah, that's, I can't understand them having a rapporteur for torture. I mean, is that admitting that it's going on and he patrols it? Does it mean that it's against the law and we should be watching out for it? Does it mean that they can only torture a little bit or certain circumstances? What? I mean, what's he do? What's his? I'd like to see his job description.
Yes, I think his job description is on the UN website. I think the idea is that he should go after cases of torture, and he is, I think, entitled to visit the country and do personal visits. And then, you know, but, you know, one of the things I would like to see, given that he's Swiss and I'm being tortured in Switzerland, can he come up from, you know, if he can visit countries in Africa and Asia, can he make it up from Geneva to Zurich and have a look at my office? And, you know, the bunker I have to live in. And actually, oh, by the way, sorry, this is just one announcement and then I'll pass on the microphone. I wanted to draw people, I'm just going to share my screen. I want to draw people to the following announcement, because if people go to my website, stop007.org, then they'll get to here, the top of the page. And when they scroll down to the bottom, here on the left, they'll see court cases and evidence. And then there's a quick link here to evidence. That's at the bottom of the page. And I have posted evidence about the mutilation that I have now. This is totally hot off the press. And this is the mutilation I suffered after I requested cease and desist from the Swiss intelligence agency, because I was irradiated in my home so hard I had to flee my home. And I fled to a hotel. And I think it was in that hotel that at night, they came in and they conducted laser surgery on me. But shortly thereafter, I noticed that I had a scar on, this is my navel, and this is a photograph taken by my doctor, and you can see a lined scar on my navel. And so I had it certified. I spoke to Melanie. She said, yes, I'm also implanted in my navel. That's one of the key locations where they put implants. And lo and behold, you know, I think 1 or 2 days after discovering the scar, they started setting off the chip inside that they placed inside as part of the harassment routine. And at some point I thought, okay, I'm going to see if I can actually detect it with the bug detector. And I have made a little video where you can see it here. I'm not going to play it, but you can actually see how the detector is, you know, is showing a massive signal. When you turn on the audio, you can also hear this detector howling. And then when you watch the video, in the background, you can see, I also explain at the end, I think, the bunker I have to sleep in. I think it's this video. Or maybe it's the next one I'm going to upload. But you can see my bed in the background, and you can see how I have to crawl into this bunker and sleep at night. And like Ramola, like Karen, like Melanie, I go to bed and I'm listening to the patter of shots bouncing off the shielding. So that's my life in Zurich. I'm curious if the special rapporteur could be bothered to, you know, trek up to this canton. And then I also put out a lot of information about measurements, because it occurs to me, so here at the bottom you'll find a link section on measurements that takes you to the very bug detector that I'm using. I'm also telling people where they can buy it and what they have to watch out for when they actually doing measurements. So this is the Atseco FC6002 RF tracer that I'm using. So the reason why I went through all this to actually, you know, put out that information is because I think a lot of the victims are implanted. So Millicent has got scans actually showing the implants in her body. Melanie has surgical scars. She had implants removed from her throat, an actual strangulator, and I'm thinking that this bug detector cost me, I think, 150 euros or something like that. So for 150 euros, you can buy yourself a detector, scan yourself, and see if you have any implants, you know.
I think that's great, Catherine. Really, thank you for doing that, for putting that information out, because I certainly am very interested. And I'm sure there are others, because, you know, some of us cannot afford the $5,000 scans with private investigators, but we still know that we're implanted. I certainly know that I'm implanted, and I can sense the various spots of my body which are responding to radio frequency signals being sent in from outside. But I haven't really proved it, you know, with actual physical recording equipment. And so I'd really like to get that, I think, and try to establish that.
Yes, the key thing to realize, and that was key for me, is so Melanie and I, we did a scan and she found the chips in my neck, and that was inside a Faraday cage. But now I managed to actually show, even without the Faraday cage, that this bug detector just goes crazy, and you can hold it on the part of your body with the chip and then, you know, take it away, and the signal immediately disappears. And if you hold it elsewhere where there are no chips, you don't get the signal. So if you do that 15, 20 times, that's pretty conclusive, you know.
And there's one thing I'd like to clarify. I think yesterday when we were talking about this, you talked about two kinds of signals. One is a signal that is sent to the chip, and the other is a signal that the chip emits, correct? So this kind of detector would actually detect the signal the chip emits?
I think so. I think so. I think there's some sort of communication level, because unless the chip is receiving very, very focused beams, which I don't think it does because I'm inside, I think it receives this diffuse, you know, signal that's equivalent to the mobile phone signal, you know, and that should be just, you know, it's throughout the room. So that should not change when you're waving this thing around. But when it's, so what this bug detector does, because it is a bug detector, it is honing in, it's first of all measuring a very broad range from 1 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. So, so from 1 million hertz to 6 billion hertz, that's a massive range. And when it finds a very strong signal, it kind of hones in on it. And it locks onto the signal, and then it detects, is the signal there or is it also coming from elsewhere? Because the idea is that you use it to find the bugs exactly. So, you know, you really want to hone in on the directionality of a particular signal. And I think that is the signal that the chips are emitting, actually.
Okay.
So, and that's relevant because another bit of news I want to make is, for example, Melanie, she reported that she started working with some people in Brussels, and every time she does, she's got implants in her inner thighs, and they literally heat them up and make them burn. Now, I think that's a different type of implant. I think that one might not necessarily be sending. It might be maybe what's called light guides, or, you know, they might store energy and then release it in the form of heat, or convert electromagnetic energy straight to heat. But
it could be nanotech, because when I was researching Millicent's article, you know, the article that I wrote for Millicent, we looked at her reports, and her reports actually talk about nanobiosensors inside the body, and about some of these nanotech sensors containing very thin films, like they're called ultra thin films or something like that, and those, when hit with signals, release heat through chemical reactions.
Wow, I think when we get Melanie on next time, she can report it. But she showed me, she was just attacked today, and she asked me to take some screenshots as evidence, and literally her skin has been burnt up. She went and had it certified by a doctor. It's horrific because they burn you alive. They burn you alive, really. And it's just the most shocking thing. And so I think the point is that that sort of technology that might not be emitting, but then if they use it to heat your tissue, you will find out by another means, you know. But, so anyway, that's from me. I've banged on for a long time.
But just on that subject, Catherine, the subject of burns, I wanted to actually make a note about how there are many people who report being hit with these directed energy weapons who are reporting burns of different kinds, you know, on the skin. And it seems like, looking at the array of, well, public domain information on military technology that's out there, such as the active denial system or the millimeter wave weapons, There's a whole bunch of different kinds of weapons out there that can create this kind of skin burn. There's, as I said, there's this ultra thin film nanotech that could be under the skin. By the way, nanotech is something we are all breathing in. And if you listen to some of the experts who've been following the stories about nanotechnology and have been doing a lot of research, such as Alana Freeland, for instance, you hear that basically these nanobots, nanobots as well as different kinds of nanotech of various kinds are raining down on us through these chemtrails and aerosols. It's not just solar radiation management. It comes down, especially in rain and wind. It may be injected up in the stratosphere. We see the planes, with their load streaking across our skies all the time. And you also hear that they are very targeted to specific locations. So specific payloads could be targeted to specific locations. And so what comes down enters our bodies, enters our skin, and enters the bloodstream. So if that stuff is, and we're talking about very, very tiny particles, right? This is nanometers, 1/1000th of a meter in dimension. And this is inside our bodies. And so these could be activated from outside by signals. So that could create a kind of burning, So that's something to research further, no doubt. But these are some of the realities of our current day living today, which are not, of course, they're not spoken about in the mainstream press at all. You kind of have to go to YouTube and listen to various experts talking on these talk shows. So there's that. There's these millimeter wave weapons that they are testing. If you look at some of the USFO's contracts with defense contractors, they're testing millimeter wave weapons. And other weapons, but I do know for a fact they're testing millimeter wave weapons, looking at some of the contract information I've looked at. And other kinds of weapons, no doubt. And there's also the active denial system, which the more you read about it, it's not just that one big piece of instrumentation that you see in the, if you go, I think, on US Army websites, you see pictures and video of this one huge antenna system that's being used. They're also using smaller portable ADSs. They're using infrared, they're using heat. I can tell you last night, I was woken up about 3 times with intense heat laid along my spine. I was woken up. We all experience the sleep deprivation, and I see Melissa nodding her head. Perhaps she's familiar with this as well. Yes. Woken up with heat at my spine, intense heat, so to the extent that I'm sweating. Even though the air conditioning is on, and I'm supposedly supposed to sleep in comfort. No, I'm sweating because I'm woken up with heat at my spine, and my entire body is aflame with heat. So what could cause that? What kind of weapon, because clearly it's a weapon, could cause that? Are those infrared rays being directed at me? Are those, they're definitely some kind of thermal or heat-inducing rays that are being directed at me, So clearly, and we are kind of working in the dark a little bit because a lot of this technology is classified, and we kind of have to dig through and find out what could possibly match what we're experiencing, right? Yeah. So.
Remember, let me suggest also that you try and get to a chiropractor or someone else who will do an examination of your spine and take some baseline x-rays, because I do have severe lumbar spondylosis as well as cervical spondylosis as a result of the heating of my spine. And of late, I've begun last 2 weeks ago to have physical therapy for thoracic problems. So see, they're just generally wearing out my spine.
Oh dear.
So do get some baseline reports so that you will be able to document any changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good advice. That's good advice. I kind of wanted to make the point basically that there's so many different kinds of burning that different people are reporting. It's not just the 4 of us. There's like thousands of people out there who are reporting being burned. We are being burned by microwave weapons, by millimeter wave weapons, by spectrum weapons, I believe it's called, right? Because they're across the spectrum, by spectrum and sonic weapons. So, to me, it comes down to how can the military dare to do this? How can local law enforcement dare to do this? because they are burning civilians in their own homes, inside their own homes, across the world. And they're getting away with it. I don't know, I'm sorry I came in late, so I don't know to what extent you've talked about Millicent's cases yet, because I think that would be really valuable to talk about regarding how doctors are responding when you go to the emergency room or you go to your local physician and you say, here are my symptoms, here is what has happened, here is what I'm experiencing. You know, what are the doctors' reactions? What do doctors know about what is going on, and how are they responding today, you know, in 2017, in July 2017?
Speaking of pictures, we also have pictures of Helen Thompson, who lives in Washington State.
Oh, yes.
And the pictures that I have show burns on even the bottom of her feet.
Yes, and Helen Thompson's case, I should tell everyone, is an intense case. It's one of the worst cases, as you said, Catherine. It's another one of the worst cases that we have encountered. Helen Thompson is an elderly lady living alone in Washington State, and she is reporting burns all over her body, and she's been in close touch with Millicent, and we've heard some of her voice and audio recordings. How can a woman living alone be assaulted in this fashion? What has happened to our society that, you know, the military can get away with this, that the Navy can get away with this, that local law enforcement does not respond? She has given, I understand, pictures of her burns. She's reported these burns to local law enforcement. And Millicent, you can talk to us about what happened after she reported it, right? Because you know more about her case, I think.
She gets threatened even by her doctor. So she keeps quiet, and she's afraid to talk about it even to her family members. She is on oxygen, and they gas her nonstop. They make her extremely weak, and she is so frail. To see her pictures even, she is so frail, and it's like they don't care. These are you know, probably men in their 20s and 30s who are using her for practice to learn how to torture old women. And this kind of makes it much more clear to us why they like to target children and the elderly. It's because they're less likely to be believed.
Mm-hmm. And I find it shocking that when she shows her body filled with burns to her physician, immediately the physician says this is a mental health issue, when there's physical evidence of burns.
Absolutely.
Well, I think what we all have to wake up to, you know, is because there's only one thing that's missing in here, and that is that 6% of the population are psychopaths. They are deranged. They are fundamentally flawed. And every psychopath, it's not every psychopath flips, but when every psychopath, if they wanted to, they could without giving a damn, because they do not have the modules to care. They do not. And if you really want to understand what the psychopath is like, we have to go to the actually detected, prosecuted, locked up psychopaths and study them. And if you ever went to an actual real mental hospital where these really deranged people are, or you go to a prison where all these serial killers are and you speak to them, they are deranged, they are gone. That's why they are never released, because they are fundamentally flawed forever, you know. And the truth is that with 6% of, or 1 to 6% of the population psychopaths, most of the psychopaths are not in jail. They are roaming freely. And one of the key aspects of psychopaths is that they lie without blinking. In fact, they like lying because in their ethics or their, you know, sort of worldview, if you can cheat on somebody else, you're clever. That's great, you know, because you have to understand, in a psychopath's mind, he is an actual person and everybody else is an object. Right. That's why they think they are gods. That's why they think they are special species, because of their mental, you know, the damage in their brain, the missing parts, they do not recognize others as actual people. They recognize them as objects to be manipulated. So to a psychopath, we're not sitting here as, you know, Ramola, Karen Millicent, and Dr. Paul Marco. We're sitting here as a toaster, a Hoover, you know, maybe a book and an iPad. And do they care about what happens to the iPad or the book? No. You know, if you break that iPad, you get another one. And that's the key. And what we have to turn it totally around, because I understand the shock. And I have to say, I've spent months in shock. And now I just want to clear out this entire, infestation of deranged people, because they are mentally deranged. And in the next hour, we'll hear about actually the case from France, where you can see criminals and deranged people in action and incompetence. And I think it's very simple to explain the case of Helen, because when what psychopaths love to do is gang up on others, and it becomes a game. They're just like toying around like a cat instinctively toys with a mouse before eating it, So what they're doing with Helen is that because she is defenseless, because she's alone, sorry, this is all the aluminium in the background, if you can hear it, the windows are open, but they are playing with her, and they will play with her until she dies. You have to realize that psychopaths do not stop themselves. There's no serial killer in history where you could just say, oh, there's serial killer, make a public announcement over live television and say, Mr. Serial Killer, if you could please stop, see how bad this is what you're doing, and if you could please stop murdering women, or, kidnap children and then, leave them somewhere disemboweled next to the street. It's not going to help, because these people are mentally deranged, and it's what the key we have to realize is that all the people who got us onto these lists, some of whom we know by name, they are deranged. And there's absolutely no amount of emailing them that will help them. We have to remove them one way or another.
Yes, but also I think it's very important to establish, Catherine, that we are living in a time period when these people that you're talking about, these deranged psychopaths, they are now everywhere. They're in the top echelons of government, top echelons of the intelligence agencies, in the top echelons of the military, every branch of the military, and every branch of law enforcement, and every branch of medicine and psychiatry. These are the people who are setting policy, who are making strategic policy decisions that get written up as laws and regulations, that get written up inside things like the Common Rule, which is supposed to protect people, but ends up protecting researchers and permits them to experiment endlessly on humans. So we've entered a time period where everything has been rolled back. The Nuremberg Treaty has been rolled back. Informed consent has been rolled back. Common compassion has been rolled back. Humanity has been rolled back. Everything's been rolled back. And these psychopaths have come in and created policy situations all around whereby they permit themselves to test deadly weapons that will cause burns on human bodies, that will cause damage to organs, that will neurohack and biohack human bodies. They permitted themselves to test weapons, and they permitted themselves to use surveillance radar, which does the same kind of thing, which, fibrillates and oscillates different parts of human bodies, which can see through walls and can burn through walls. Various other technologies, of course, scalar waves, whatever, different triangulation technologies from satellites, technologies from implants. Anything goes at this point in time. They have given themselves permission to simply assault the human body. So we are living in a time period of lack of conscience, lack of ethics, lack of humanity, and lack of, the Nuremberg is gone. It's gone. There is informed consent has gone. It's fallen by the wayside. Torture is in currently, and this is and I blame both physicians and the military for it. And I'm talking about physicians at the top levels of the NIH, the guys who sit on committees and create these laws and regulations. They just went through supposedly revamping the Common Rule, They spent 5 years supposedly revamping the Common Rule, and what did they end up with? They ended up with the end of informed consent, even further than it was already rolled back, and they permitted both criminal justice and intelligence agencies to have waivers. In other words, an intelligence agency can do anything it wants because these are considered normative intelligence and surveillance activities. It can experiment on humans as much as it likes all over America, because these are normative intelligence activities. So this is what the so-called big shots, the doctors with the big, the names and the long years of education, the long years of teaching, the several degrees behind their name. These are the guys who sat on the Presidential Bioethical Commission and SACHOP, the Secretary's Advisory Committee for Human Research Protections. They sit on these committees, they talk endlessly, and they come up with this, which is anything goes, lack of informed consent totally rolled back, and everything in favor of the military, everything in favor of the researcher, the medical researcher who wants humans to research on, whether it's in neuroscience or cybernetics or artificial intelligence. This is what they come up with. So this is the time period that we're living in, when you have professionals sitting on committees doing things like this. And that certainly that's the species you're talking about, the psychopaths. But they're psychopaths with degrees, they're psychopaths with teaching positions in famous universities, they're psychopaths who are professionals, toying with human lives.
Yes,
So thank God we have Neil Smelter out there reporting on the torture. He works for them. He works for them. I don't want to discourage you writing him, because I think we should drive the man crazy with incidents of torture. It's going on all over the place. And he's the rapporteur for torture in the UN. My God.
Paul,
Go ahead, Melissa.
I'd like to just clarify just a little bit about what that position does. I met Juan Mendez in 2013 after he wrote a report to the Human Rights Committee at the United Nations on torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. And it was specifically about forced psychiatric detention. What he said and what is published in this report is anyone who is forced into a psychiatric facility or forced to take psychotropic medications, that's considered torture. And the report was very extensive. It was very good. And following that report, or in support of that report, was when I did the change.org petition to stop forced involuntary detention, because it's a cover up for human experimentation and military training. With the change.org petition, every time that petition got signed, a copy of the letter went to Juan Mendez. So since Juan Mendez has left the position, I have now exchanged Neil Smeltzer for him on the change.org petition, and we continue to encourage people to sign it. And it's getting a good response. But every time the petition is signed, that letter that discusses why we're asking Congress to actually install a law that will allow us to not be forced to take drugs or forced into a psychiatric hospital, based on Juan Mendez's report that it is considered torture. A copy of the letter goes to him. So by now he's very familiar with us. He's very familiar with the kinds of people that are experiencing the torture, because I'm believing that their name is on that letter. So since last October, he's been getting letters, and he's very aware of our situations. I have also been sending him and CCing him on some of my communication with the local police department, also with the local vice mayor and the local city manager. Like Catherine, I've not had a response from him at all about it. But the point is that what they are overseeing is not just torture, but also cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. And all of those are activities that is reported extensively by the Physicians for Human Rights in not just one report, but at least 3. One of them is entitled "Break Them Down, Leave No Marks." Well, they're leaving marks on us. A second report is entitled "Broken Laws, Broken Lives." And then they did a third report strictly on torture. As a medical, I'll have to get the exact title of it, but from a medical perspective. And these reports are written by medical doctors and JD degreed professionals. So they are extensively documented. They do include short-term as well as long-term damage that one can expect to find in a victim of torture from those military sites like Abu Ghraib or Iraq and Afghanistan. They also include the legal ramifications of torture. Now, again, I'm talking about the reports that's been written by the Physicians for Human Rights. You should go and make yourself very familiar with them. In one of those reports, they actually cite a Supreme Court decision against the state of Tennessee for allowing torture, for allowing actually psychological abuse. That case is Ashcraft versus Tennessee. They actually cited that. And so when I found that, boy, I got right on it, looking into it more, because that's exactly what's happening to me now. I'm being allowed to be psychologically abused, not just psychologically, but also physically tortured right here in Tennessee, after the Supreme Court has made a ruling against that practice.
I think this is really valuable. Actually, we should quote this case that you mentioned. Was it Ashcroft versus Tennessee? Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, because we should put that onto so the joint investigation team will also collect all the legal, the one that Karen usually quotes as well. That's a really important one. We put all these different legal, how to put it, useful things to quote at these people, and in your legal proceedings, we should put them all together. I think this is all laudable that these people were doing. However, there are two things that I find very, very, very interesting. So we have these highly paid UN places and Juan Mendez, and they put out hundreds and hundreds of pages of reports where they describe in detail how people are tortured and how it's really, really bad. And then pages and pages about the victims and how the victims suffer, and this is the victim, the damage to the victims. And I say at some point, okay, now after you spend 600 pages blathering on about that, can you tell me something about the perpetrators and how they got there? Like Guantanamo Bay. Tell me the name of this doctor. There are emails from the doctor saying, typing a happy email saying, oh yes, I'm about to go over there and try some other stuff. I'm like, how come if this is torture, you haven't, dug out that little criminal? Because these are criminals, And what I want to hear now is because my suspicion is, sorry, I'm not criticizing anything you said, Melissa. Sorry, I'm getting angry about this total massive omission, because my gut feeling is that what we're actually looking at, and this is how well hidden it is, this is actually a porn industry for sadists. And when they're putting out long and long documentations about how the victims are suffering, I think what we're missing is that a lot of the people are actually getting off on that. And a lot of the people in these committees as well. And then they think, oh yeah, this is the kind of stuff that we can do and that we are doing. And this is how people suffer. And then they get their lives destroyed. And the sad truth is that there's a large fraction of the population who thinks that's a good thing. And that's why there are pages and pages about the suffering of the victims, and not a single page of investigative journalism or investigative, forensics about who are the perpetrators. Because we have all the satellite systems, all around the world. We can literally track the perpetrators from any offense all the way to their home. And they pretend like, oh, we don't know who the perpetrators are. And I think we have to totally ram it around and say, okay, we heard about the suffering of the victims. Now on to what are we about to do? We want to know who are the criminals, and we will name them criminals. And we have to say there are criminals in the police, there are criminals in the military, and there are criminals in the medical profession. And this doctor who's threatening Helen, he's a criminal. He's a criminal. And the other thing is they are also psychopaths, and what psychopaths love to do is they gang up on victims. They isolate them and they gang up on them. And I'm thinking, that works. So let's just take some individual psychopaths and gang up on them and literally think we're not going to rest until we have finished them off, administratively speaking, and then we go on to the next one. And literally we find the biggest psychopaths and we track them down as a community, and we keep hunting them, and we keep terrorizing them with law cases, complaints, and we just do the same thing to them that they do to us. But the big fat difference is that we actually have got evidence, and we just keep terrorizing them with jail.
Catherine, those people that you're talking about, those top criminals, I mean, they're in the top positions. We're talking about the heads of intelligence agencies. We're talking about John Brennan and James Clapper. We're talking about everybody who heads those intelligence agencies, who heads the military departments, the Marine Corps, the Special Forces, Ops, the US Navy, the US Air Force, plus all of the guys, the CEOs in these defense contractors, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, I don't know the rest of their names. We have to look it up. But, those are the guys that are running this on us. And I posted Kevin Shipp's video recently on my website, for the 4th of July, because I just listened to him. And I was talking to you guys about it recently, I know. So he's talking, this is a talk that he gave in October at Geoengineering Watch. And he was talking about secrecy and what it's done to this country. And he's got this incredible slide where he actually gives the information about the numbers of government agencies now and private companies that are engaged in the work of secrecy, where everybody who's involved, who's employed, is sworn to secrecy. You see? So he's talking about more than 1,200 government organizations that are working with secrecy. More than, I forget the numbers at this point, I'll have to look up that slide, but something like 1,800 private companies, or more than that, private companies who are working in the realm of secrecy. These are covered operations, but everybody is sworn not to disclose what they are doing. And then you have, on top of that, tens of thousands of people inside these organizations. So the question becomes, we've created, in a sense, a society which is pitted one against the other, with a huge portion of society working with these military and intelligence agencies. Thousands and thousands of people, even working in Google and Facebook, because Google and Facebook have now cut deals with the NSA and the CIA. Right? But they're not supposed to say anything about what they're working on. And what are they working on? They're working on spying on us, taking all our data, listening to us, sitting on our computers, stopping us when we try to make videos and audios, speaking out about this kind of stuff. And plus, there's this whole other conglomerate working on targeting individuals with EMF weapons and with neuro weapons, which, the subject close to our heart. A whole bunch of private partnerships and private companies working on that. Lots of deals cut on the side, insurance fraud associated with it, identity fraud associated with it, as, Karen and I and Midge have been trying to uncover in some conversations, now on Real Talk True Media. So you can go to this new YouTube channel if anybody's listening out there. We've just launched it. And we have 2 conversations there with Midge, our resident researcher, who is pulling out literally the ways in which organized crime has invaded our society in America, and how private companies are working with the DHS, working with the CIA, working with DARPA, to literally prey on people like us, which is really normal people, ordinary people, everyday civilians, who are just trying to go about their lives, but we are being preyed on by this sector, this secretive sector. So I just wanted to say that there's this whole split that's occurred in our society now, where you have where secrecy, where walls of secrecy divide our societies, and permit one group of people to prey on another group of people.
Yeah.
Ramola, was that Karen?
I said, yes, it's predator prey. They go to these people and they tell them you're special. Or they tell them, look, we're going to basically be on top. You can either be with us or be crushed with us. And then they start to engage them and tell them how very special they are, which is so very ironic, because what they're doing is they're taking the dregs of society and they are using them to destroy the core of society. You're going to have, basically the masters and their little roaches is all that you're going to have. And it's just so ironic. It really is. I mean, they're not special. They're only special in that they're stupid and malicious and petty and greedy. And so I self-identify as the bottom of society. And I've never used this term before, but I would definitely classify them as useless eaters. That's harsh, but I think that's true, because they serve no purpose.
Karen, it's funny that you would use that term, though, because that's what they call children and the elderly and the mentally ill and the developmentally disabled.
Yeah, but they're wrong, because
Sure,
those
they're
people
wrong.
that
Of course
value,
they are.
they are the useless eaters. They are the
Absolutely.
inhuman predators. They are the
Absolutely.
counterfeit human beings. They look human, but they are not. They self-identify by doing this as monsters.
Absolutely.
And
They
I
Well,
self-identify as rabid dogs, and we do not keep rabid dogs around hoping they'll change.
And I understand they're cutting deals now with convicted felons, with people who are in the prison system for, actual
Probably.
convicted criminals. They're cutting deals with them to engage as perpetrators in this weapons wielding, weapons pointing scenario that's going on all around us. And we're talking about microwave weapons, of course.
Well, they have to have the guys who'll do the dirty work. I mean, you go to Infraguard and those people are fools. They're told they're special and that they're patriots and that they're ridding the country of harmful people. And they know they know the Constitution. They know they have no right to do that. They know that secret accusations and secret evidence and secret witnesses, that's wrong. That's why we had the Constitution to begin with. They know this. I mean, I'll repeat again, the police are always telling you excuse of the law is, basically ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, I'm sorry, but ignorance of the Constitution in this country is no excuse, whether you are a civilian or you are wearing a badge. It's no excuse. Off with their heads is what I say, because they don't have an excuse. They're destroying society. And how do you say, oh, I've toyed with the idea of making, because I draw, making cartoons, having somebody go, oh boy, could you join this club, because we get to kill people and the prizes are big screen TVs and trips to Disneyland, and it's so fun, and we don't have to show our faces. We can hide and kill people, and we're in a group of 1,000 to 1 against one person, so we'll never get caught. There's no danger of you being hurt for being a sadist because you're in this group and you're special. How about commercials like that?
wow. So you have just rehearsed the protocol of that person whose name I don't call, who was perpetrating me. That was his announcement in 2008 to the community. Exactly what you just said.
Yes, it's okay to kill. It's okay to treat this person as a victim. Anything can be done to this person. This particular person has no rights. And by the way, I've heard this from various other people who've had conversations with insiders who actually say this. So people who are targeted today are actually being put on extermination lists. These are targeting until death lists. And what people are being told is, that's it. These persons who are on these lists have been slated for extermination. Therefore, they can be trafficked out to any kind of research project. And this is why they are, and this is why people become subjects of multiple research projects with multiple universities. So here's once more, the issue of universities. Our university researchers, our university professionals, stooping so low as to dissect and experiment on people with this kind of incredible weaponry, electromagnetic radiation, without conscience whatsoever. So people, and the military, of course, for weapons testing.
Well, let me call out one person who works at Florida State University in Tallahassee, where I was, and the targeting began. One of the stalkers had FSUPROF on his license tag.
Wow. So
when Florida State basically sends me, requests for donations, never. Not giving. I mean, I graduated from Florida State University, and I'm sorry I did. My father was on the first football team. My mother named the Marching Chiefs, the band that is, their pride and joy. And I'm ashamed of it. I have really thought about taking my diploma and anything having to do with Florida State University and burning it on a video and posting it. I'm so disgusted.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at it another way, I mean, that's it exactly. It's like the universities are trolling for subjects, and the military is trolling for subjects. So basically the subject or victim, interchangeable. So the military is trolling for victims, someone they can hit on interminably until death with their weapons. So this is the U.S. military, and I want to actually pull in what Catherine said a minute ago. We need to focus on these guys, and we need to target them. We need to target these guys who are targeting us. We need to target them, put their names out there, name them and shame them continuously. Because what they are doing is they are targeting innocent and outstanding men and women and children all over America and all over the world. And they are destroying lives. They're destroying lives with carcinogenic electromagnetic radiation weapons and sonic weapons and torture, systems and protocols of torture.
And with slander.
I'm sorry?
And with slander and character assassination.
And with slander and defamation. And by the way, that's written into their military documents and into their regulations. They permit themselves to slander subjects of experimentation.
Really?
Yes.
I need to see that.
I should pull up the document and send it to you. It's either one of those journals of military deception or AR-22 or one of those regulations. Between the CIA and the DoD, they've become interchangeable at this point in time in terms of what they permit themselves.
And can you imagine the hubris of somebody engaged in secret, cowardly murder, slandering their victim for something that they have sat there and watched the person in their life and they see no evidence of whatsoever?
Yes.
So you see, they've told themselves if the person is under surveillance and anyone under surveillance can now be experimented on, that person can be defamed, their character can be defamed. Deception, active military deception can be applied to their character.
It's to dehumanize them and give these people a reason to continue and to feel good about themselves. It's just what the Nazis did to the Jews, and
and they've written it down
over and over in history. It's unfortunately something that works, and people fall for it all the time because people have an innate desire to feel superior to someone. And I look at the InfraGard, and I call them infratards. In Tallahassee and elsewhere. And, they're CPAs and they're college professors and they're whatever, but they have a desperate desire to be something, to be someone, contributing in the way that they're contributing isn't enough for them. They want, the fame of being, I'm a 007, and they are so eager and anxious to be superior to someone, that they can take that with them to the grave, because otherwise they feel like their life isn't worth anything. And that's very sad. You go to crooks and they basically are torturing and killing you for money, period. But these other fools tell themselves that they're something special. And yet, when you turn and stare at them, they run away. How very special.
And that's the mystique, and that's the mystique of the intelligence agencies, running around, making out like that the intelligence agencies are so special, that secrecy is also special, the 007 is also special. That's the mythology that we are living with in this society, in our current society today, and that these people fall for because they're being roped into what the CIA is doing. They're roped into what the DHS is doing. They're roped into what the FBI is doing. And we, as a society, are supposed to look up to these agencies, the DHS, the CIA, the FBI, as supernatural, demigods among us. They are investigators. They are so intelligent. They are focused on security.
Right.
Total BS.
Yes, and they're telling themselves, these people have chosen us because we're so very special. And then you get back to NSA headquarters or somewhere else, and they've chosen them because they're so very stupid, so very naive,
malleable, pliable, docile, all of that.
And what the Bolsheviks called useful idiots.
Mm-hmm.
I think the points we've made are just so amazing. As you were talking, I was casting my mind back, and I genuinely feel I have seen this movie before. And I really, down into the last detail, because everything that you described is exactly spot on, you know, the useful idiots. And the last time I've seen it, that was in the communist system. And exactly as you said, the absolute scum of society has been empowered, and they are taking out good people. So it's kind of like you take the scum, you put it on top, you put it into positions, and then you squeeze out the good people. But because these idiots can't actually perform, you degrade the entire system, you know. And that's how system inversion works. You kind of put in the bottom at the top, and then you just push the system down. And because there are only few positions, and it's so hard to dislodge people, you know, that's why these people stay in there. The thought I was having, sorry, I think I'm getting micro feedback again.
Yeah, a little hard to hear you.
So I think the key to realize to all this is, I mean, number one, what I really totally, sign up to is we have to start going after individuals. You know, that's what they start ganging up on individuals, and we have to do the same thing. We have to really, and I would propose going after the figureheads with a statutory duty to fight terrorism. So
yeah, my tablet is getting hacked right in front of my face. It is changing the configuration.
Oh my God.
Right. I mean, I just took a screenshot of it.
Yeah. I suspected it's something like that because the camera went, and then I could hear you act really, I could hear the rustle that you were trying to do something really quickly. I mean, this is ridiculous. And, we have to go after this criminal, and we have to go after the criminals who are protecting this criminal. And we have to use this word.
I think that's what you're doing right now. I think it's a parasite class.
Yeah.
That's the upper class. They contribute nothing. They cause mayhem. And one aspect of psychopathology that's not talked about is they can't do any wrong. In their eyes, they'll never take responsibility. You know, they're trying to pull off. Hi, my friend. It's a parasite class. That's the upper class. They contribute nothing. They cause mayhem. And one aspect of psychopathology that's not talked about is they can't do any wrong. In their eyes, they'll never take responsibility. We've got Frederick. Frederick, I think you have your computer on. They contribute nothing. They cause they can't do any wrong.
You need to mute one of the things.
Okay, one minute. Yeah, hello. I am not connected with my PC, it's with my mobile.
But then you have to mute the other channel, because we are hearing ourselves with a several minute delay. You have to switch off the television. What you could do, Frederick, until you're set up, is you have to mute your mobile phone. You have to mute the device with which you're connecting. So there's a little microphone symbol at the top, and you just have to press that.
Okay, where is it?
It's on the screen. If you go to the very top, I think if you touch the screen, there should be a little microphone icon, and if you just press it, it just mutes it, and then you can set it up, and then it's not disturbing the chat. Otherwise, we are hearing ourselves be piped back.
I would like to reconnect with Chrome browser because I am on my mobile, and we have tried before with the desktop. It was working better.
Okay, let's do that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Frederick is connecting for the first time, so it's always. I think he was trying to use his.
We'll work on it.
Yeah, we did a quick test, and I think it works on his computer. So I tried to set him up before he comes online and actually try that. But a microphone and the video works really well. Yeah, I think. Sorry, I forgot who was speaking last time. It was you, Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to
disconnect me and reconnect me with the PC.
I'll do it another time. This is more important. Frederick is more important because I want to get the information on his case out, because he's He's being forced medical injections now. So that's against one of the things that we were talking about. Neil Smeltzer should be getting right on that case.
Yeah,
and
exactly. And I think this is what we were talking about the point of these, all of these things. And so my view is that what we're describing is deep capture by organized crime. And they are like psychopaths, they are mostly psychopaths, but they also imprint their culture. And pathological lying is one of the features. And that's why they are taking the victims and they are terming them terrorists, whereby actually they are the terrorists themselves. And everything is inverted, But this is how the case of Frederick actually ties in with the things that we were saying, because in his case, you can see the criminal class, the criminal conspiracy between different people, between the police officers involved, in my view, between psychiatry, and also between, I think, the Préfet de l'Isère, who was ultimately responsible for this. And I would say there's always the question of, are you dealing with honest people who just don't understand or don't know what's going on? Or are you dealing with people who are actually conspiring in a criminal fashion? And for me, as an investigator, the telltale sign is that when it's genuinely innocent people who just don't know, when something really unusual happens, a question mark has to appear on their face, and they have to be at least surprised, or they have to request further information. They have to feel uncomfortable. When it's a criminal conspiracy, they know it's a criminal conspiracy, and then they just, they are just acting elbows and charging headlong like a bunch of wild boars, totally convinced of themselves. And if they were innocent, along the way, there would be so many warning signs, so many inconsistencies and irregularities that an innocent person would slow down and think, hang on, what's going on? When this is not happening and these people are, going like that, it means they are executing a plan that's already agreed. There are no further questions in the minds of these people. And when I was listening to Frederick's case, that's what really got me. And I leave it out, up to the audience to listen to his story carefully and actually try to spot all those instances whereby the way the people behaved is in total contradiction to them being just innocent, And always ask yourself, is this how a person who's never heard about microwave weapons would act? Is this how a genuine police officer, a genuine psychiatrist would act? And literally try to see at what stage can you tell, are these people genuine and just uninformed, or are they actually part of a criminal conspiracy? Because in one scenario, they should get really unsure, have questions, not understand things. In the other one, they're totally self-confident, and they're relying on their team to back them up. And it's incredible. But I think it's very important to listen to Frederick's case, and also because it ties in with something that Millicent experienced as well. Because she was also, she was slandered, I would say, by doctors who were questioning her mental health, even though she has scans showing the implants in her bodies, even though she already had implants removed, and that to me is always an indication that there's some sort of criminal element in the medical profession. She also had a case where actually, an illness that was diagnosed was brushed aside for vacuous questions about mental health. Now, a normal doctor wouldn't, prefer speculation when there's actually medical tests saying, okay, this person really needs treatment, and that's the telltale sign. But looking like more globally, I would say that we are now in the situation where we have our pyramid organizations in deep capture by organized crime. And the question is, how can we get them out? Because I would say once an organization is captured at the top, it cannot repair itself that easily. It cannot repair itself by itself, because it would require, for example, the CEO to sack himself. When the CEO is corrupt. When you're talking about a country, it would require the parliament to disband itself as being we're just too corrupt. Someone else has to come in. Joe Bloggs has to come in off the street because he's more honest than us. That's not going to happen. So the question is, what sort of mechanisms are there to recover a system in deep capture? And there are only two, I would say. Number one is actually external force from a system even bigger than the original system. So that's why I think we have to work with the UN and find the honest people in the UN, because in a sense, they've got less power than national people, but in a sense, they're also bigger than any one nation state. So they have to help us recapture these systems. And then the second mechanism to recapture a system is through internal mutiny. So people have to rise up against the corrupt ones and actually just pull them down. So claw at them and actually get them out of the position and throw them into jail. So I think going forward, what we need to do is we need to dig out all the legislation and administrative mechanisms to remove corrupt people from office, because it's not the first time in history. So you guys were absolutely right. It's the head of intelligence who are corrupt, the heads of the military. That's true. I think they're all criminals. I think there's evidence to say they're all criminals. We should name them criminals. But when a head of a military or head of an intelligence acts criminally against the interests of his own country, he is committing high treason. So these people have to be removed, I would say, under high treason charges, and also under charges of premeditated murder, and also, under charges of crimes against humanity.
And Catherine, I think that idea of finding the administrative and legislative mechanisms to remove people is brilliant. And what you mentioned, the issue of internal mutiny. So if we have all of these systems and organizations and agencies in place, and if we actually have good people inside of them, a fraction of good people, well, those good people need to wake up. They need to get informed, they need to become aware, and they need to wake up, and they need to become active. But you see, what we are dealing with currently is sort of large-scale pusillanimity, people who are incredibly timid, people who will not go against the grain, who will not go against the flow, and people who also are so rolled inside this wall of secrecy thing that they've bought into it, And I think actually Karen can speak to this. She's worked inside the NSA, and if I recall from all of my interviews with her, she and various other people in the NSA had no idea about the incredible criminality that, she began to become acquainted with after she left the NSA. So she knows there are good people inside. So then the question becomes, how do we reach those good people? Why aren't they listening to us? We want those good people to listen to us, to hear us. Can't hear you, Karen.
Oh, thank you. Part of the problem with NSA is that you sign agreements saying that you will not divulge secrets, and they are using, top secret classifications to hide crimes. They're also using compartmentalization to hide crimes. I mean, you may have 5 branches in, let's say, research and development, 2 of which are actually operating criminal activity, but you don't know because you're not read on to the paperwork for that particular project. The other 3 may be absolutely legitimate, and then these 2 are absolutely treasonous and criminal. And if you say a word, you can be prosecuted. So I had told several people when they asked, they said, well, why aren't people in NSA doing something about this, or why are we not hearing more whistleblowers? And I said, because they can be prosecuted, and you're not even supposed to say people's names who work at NSA. Like if I know Bill Smith is in charge of this whole operation to hurt people, I can't say Bill Smith's name publicly, or I'll be thrown in prison. And they don't even want you to say Bill. Bill's in charge of this. So that's just how ludicrous it is. But I did read recently that with all of the hoopla about NSA spying on people illegally, and they're taking it literally as spying, they don't even know about the torture, that a lot of people are actually laterally transferring out of NSA. I mean, they just want out. They don't want to be a part of it, which is, it speaks to their honor, but it also speaks to what I talked about before, in that if you get rid of all of the good people in an organization, you'll never change it. You'll never be able to change it from within. You know, if everybody says, oh, I don't like the way you're doing, I'm quitting, I'm leaving, then you have corrupt police, then you have corrupt NSA, you know, then you have a corrupt legislature. And it's daunting to stay, you know, and I think they're afraid that their lives will be ruined, so you can't blame them for leaving. But it's very much a barrier to changing things from within.
Right. I think the people that are perps and the people that work for these psychopaths, they're at the top. Now, you know that Guantanamo was supervised personally by George W. Bush through Rumsfeld. So we're talking about a couple psychopaths there at the top. And the people that work for them, including the person that is working with you, Millicent, should know that they're the suckers on the bottom of their list. I think it was Kissinger that said the people that don't use their brains are no better than cattle. So the people that they can manipulate and the people that they can lead around and the people, whether they're misinformed or whether they're duped into this psychopathic wet dream that they're acting out here, is they're on the low level. The psychopaths regard them as nothing but slaves and cattle. You know who they revere? You guys. That's why they're going after you. Because you use your brain and you're open and you can present a legitimate threat. So on their hierarchy of people they regard, you're right next to the psychopaths. I mean, you are the ones that they're even frightened of. But the people that are following these out, and these policemen, and these probably Neil Smeltzer, let's give him a chance to prove himself. But they think that they're cattle. They think that they're worthless because they'll do what they're told. And everybody, including your guy, Millicent, should know that's how they're regarded by the parasitic class, the psychopath class on the top. They're not the revered ones. They're not the ones that are going to be taken on into the paradise with them. No. As soon as they're done wiping out of the valuable people, the people that can use their brains, they're going to be gone. What do they want them for? So
useful idiots.
Right.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't realize is, and this is something that becomes clear when you are studying systems, is, and today more so anything that we saw in history today will be amplified because of the information flow. So when you want to pull off something really nasty, like for example, this big extermination program, in the olden days, you could kind of spirit people away and then, you know, you take them to Argentina, the old Nazis, or to the US, and then everybody forgets about it, and then yada, 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 it's all fine. But what these idiots don't realize is that in an information society, we now figure out who it is. So for the very top that we don't actually see because they're staying behind the scenes, at some point when these people are done, they need to be disposed of because they're liability. If they're ever dragged into court, they will talk. And that's why I think over the last years, we saw a rise in the number of people who just like, you know, pop their clogs, because if they ever got into a court and got a bit ratty against their old colleagues, they could do some serious damage. And I think this is why we saw, you know, many cases where people maybe got arrested and died in jail, or, you know, there were, I mean, many people died, you know. So if you look at high profile fraud cases and also war criminal trials and all this sort of stuff, you know, they died sometimes in jail, amazingly, because, you know, you would think a jail is one of the safest places where it can be because they can keep you totally surveyed. But funnily enough, people hang themselves, you know, so often, you know, and there's no way for the jailers to ever notice that in time, you know, even though hanging yourself does take a couple of minutes, you know.
Yeah.
Well, there is somebody.
Yeah.
There is somebody that we know, Romola and I know. Catherine, you may or may not, but she's been a targeted person for a very long time. She's connected to big money, and that's why they targeted her to take everything she had. And it's her opinion that the perps actually do have peasant policies taken out on them as well. And once they have reached their usefulness, they are eradicated in car accidents and other types of things. And if they happen to have children, those children go into a pedophile ring. So they are dooming their children Where they think that they're murdering people for a college education for their dear little ones. But no, they may get actually annihilated themselves, and their children may be sold into slavery. So that's something for them to think about, I think.
Right, exactly. It doesn't, the secrecy stuff doesn't work in a pyramid organization in the information age, because the pyramid works top down. You tell the guys what to do. But when you're in the information age where you generate information, it's a anathema. I don't know what, it doesn't fit with the organization. So they built cocoons around it in organizations called project managers. And they cocoon these off. In general society, it's still not going to work because the openness is going to militate against the secret societies. And it's just a matter of time. That's why they have to wipe out the best and the brightest and take them out. Because as we move more into the information and as more stuff gets out, their game is kind of over. Let's introduce Frederick LaRoche. We've talked about your case before, Frederick, and we're real interested in hearing it from your own lips and what's going on with you right now. Welcome to the Techno Crime Fighters Forum.
Okay, hello. Yeah. So I'm a TI from France, and my case is a 19 years old case. So during maybe 15 years, I was not able to understand what was happening to me because I did not rely on the internet to find the information. So I was trying to find out by myself, and I was having encounters with the people around me. They were harassing me, and I was having encounters and talkings with them. So I was knowing that they were for real. And I have understood that they were following me, and it's only later that I have been to the covert harassment conference in Berlin in 2015, and that's when I have discovered the theoretical things behind everything. So it's only at that moment that I understood everything that was happening to me and that I was not the only one. So beside the harassment and the gang stalking, I was also assaulted with directed energy weapons. At the beginning, I was not able to understand how they were doing this. I was thinking of some kind of sound wave weapon. And after that, I came up to a hill, and there was no inhabitation in this hill, and they were capable of attacking me. I realized that it was not coming from the wall next to me. It was coming from something upper, and maybe planes or satellites. And then I understood that to travel the void space, it would be only electromagnetic weapons. So that's how I made my understanding by myself, because I am scientifically tuned in my mind. And then after understanding everything in the conference, I came back in France, and I decided to do something to inform the people about this happening to me, of course. And I was using my case to make the people understand what was happening everywhere. So I started the website, and I started to tell my story. And there were two friends from Paris in a cinema school, and they came to me and they made a small video about myself. So I have shown this video on the conference in Berlin, and then I have put it online later. And from that, I was talking about my situation, my testimony on my website. And I decided when there were some street protests in France called La Nuit Debout, and it was a kind of street protest against some kind of change in the French laws, the social laws that we were having for protecting the employers from being fired without any compensation, etc. So we have very good laws to protect the workers in France, and there were a sort of damage caused to the laws we have in France, and the people were not happy with this, so they were going in the street to protest, and I joined them. And in the streets, I was also distributing some flyers and having a big board sign and standing everywhere to alert the people about the gang stalking, about the electronic harassment it was happening to me, of course, but I was trying to make the people aware that it was maybe one day happening to them also. So at one point I decided to go a step further. So I have placed giant stickers on my car with some kind of slogan, anti-gang stalking, and with my website display. So it was all over my car. And I was driving everywhere with the car with that. And some people were noticing my car, and I could see on the logs of my website that people were coming to visit me from everywhere I was going with my car. And so from that point, I have tried to join the street protest with my car. And I noticed that the organizers were agreed that I could join, but only at the back of the protest. And it was fine. But after some time, I saw the police trying to remove my car from the protest. And I tried to come again, and they have finally came to me to tell me, well, sir, we are not sure you are allowed to be there because you are not on the organization list. So please be aside of the protest. And from that moment, I understood that the police was not very happy with my activism. And after that, I got fired from my company because of the stickers on my car, because they were thinking I was a kind of crazy person. And actually, it was just a kind of pretext, because I think the real reason was that my company was feeling that someone from their company was a victim of this kind of harassment, and maybe they were aware that if someone is a victim of this kind of harassment, it has something to do with a global system network with including the corporates, etc. So they tried to remove me. Finally, they did, and then in the beginning of 2017, there were a preparation for the presidential election day. So I was thinking I should do something before the election to explain the French politicians about this situation. And I have prepared a long email during many months. Every weekend I was writing a little bit, and I decided to build my email around the case of Catherine Horton only. And I have translated in French 3 of her videos that I have uploaded on my YouTube channel. And I have written a big email about her case. And I was trying to explain that this case was real and was understandable. And I have translated 3 of the videos. And at the end, I have aided my case. So I was not trying to put myself forward. I was trying to link different things. And I have sent the emails to all the French deputies and the French senators, and also the European deputies, the 800 person, plus 400 person, plus 400 person. And then I have sent the email to all the trade union syndicalists of France. It was a few hundred persons more. And I have also reached out this email to the media, the main media, also the independent media, and all the person I was knowing about La Nuit debout in France and in Grenoble and in Paris. So actually, I think I have sent maybe almost 3,000 emails. And it was including some files.
Just briefly, the question, because I think this is really important. When did you send these 3,000 emails? Because it sounds like you informed absolutely everybody in France.
Yeah, it was at the end of April. So it was after the first day of election for the presidential election and before the second turn. So it was in the middle. And then something very strange has happened to me maybe 8 days after sending all these emails. So it was on the 2nd of May, the day before, 1st May, I was doing another street protest, and I have forgotten my USB key I have used in a shop, and it was for printing the flyers. So I called the shop on the Monday first. I will come tomorrow at 11:45 p.m. I have to get back my USB key. And they say, yes, that's okay. So I came with my car in the city center, and just in the street, reaching the shop exactly at the time of the appointment, there was two cars in front of me, and the first car was trying to park, and the car behind was stopped, and I was also stopped behind these two cars. So the first car has found a place to park, and the car behind me was not moving. And I was expecting this car will go, and no, it was not going. So my car has just moved a few centimeters because I was thinking this car will go, and she did not. So I just came to the limit of contact of the car, and I stopped. And there was no damage, there was no contact, no accident, there was nothing. But the two persons inside the car, they were looking at each other for 5 seconds. They were transmitting some kind of message. And then they have decided, one, the driver, he was getting out the car, and he was coming directly to my window. And he was making a big scandal in front of everyone in the streets. And he was telling me, what are you doing? You have hit my car. What is this? You are driving crazy, etc., etc. So I was not able to understand because there was nothing has happened. And then a few seconds later, the lady, the passenger of the car, she also get out the car, and she came in front of her car, and then joining the man in front of my window. And she was also making the big scandal. What is this? You have done this to our car? And actually, it was not possible to see because my car was almost in contact with their car. So I have moved back my car, and I have shown them there is nothing, sir. So why are you making such a big scandal about nothing? Please let me go. And they were still protesting. So I decided to move away, and I have tried to move away on the left of their car. And then they have moved their bodies in front of my car, and they were trying to block me physically from moving the place. So obviously it was important for them that I was not allowed to move from this place, and that I should be seen from the pedestrian as someone who has made an accident. And they wanted me to get out of the car, and they were not interested to see the damage on their car. They were not talking to me about showing my insurance or making a document stating about the accident. They were not interested about that. They were interested in blocking me here and making me get out of the car. So when I saw these two persons in front of the car blocking me, I understood it was a kind of trap. And I was used to that because they were doing me this, surrounding me all the time during 19 years. So I was getting used of that, and I could recognize it was some of this person, it was them. So I decided to go on. So I was driving a little, not fast. I was driving normally just to get out of here. And then the man, he saw that I was moving forward, so he stepped on the left of my car, and it was a little banging of my window. And the lady, no, the lady, she has not moved on the side. She has stepped back, and then she has jumped on my car, and she was hanging like this. She was hanging like this, standing on the sides of my front window, and she was standing like this, and she was keeping her body on the front of my car, and her foot was not touching the ground. So I was thinking, my God, this is crazy, what she's doing. And I was thinking, okay, let's go on. So I was continuing moving my car forward, and she was not lifting the car. So at one moment, I had to turn the wheel because I was going away from here, and the road was turning. So I had moved my wheel, and then she has lift one of her hand was removed of the car, and she has rolled and slipped and fell on the ground. So at that moment, I felt that I had no point to stay more here because there was no accident. I have not tried to escape from an accident, and I have not hit purposely this lady. It was her aggressing me, and me trying to manage with a very strange case, very strange situation, unusual. So I have done my best, and I have gone back to my home. And then on the next day, I received a few phone calls from the police, and they were asking me, please, sir, it seems that something has happened regarding your car in the city center yesterday. Could you please tell us more and come to the police station? So I was not able to pick up the calls. I have just received the voice message. And then I decided, well, it's okay. And the last message was asking me to come in the morning. So I was ready to come in the morning. And then in the morning, they were at my door. And then they were looking at my car.
Just one question. One of the things that I'm interested in is, how did they have your phone number?
Yeah,
were they calling your mobile or your landline?
Yeah, I have asked them, why didn't you call to my landline? Because my landline is always active and my mobile is always switched off. And they said, well, we didn't find your landline because it is not in the yellow page. And I said, yes, it's right, because I have not authorized my number to be in the yellow page. But for my mobile number, it is not neither in the yellow page. So I have no idea how they got my mobile number. And then they came with the military police. And the military police, I think they were two persons. And when they saw that I was not resistant to their visiting me, and I was accepting their visit to me, and they decided to leave the place. And they told the police, well, obviously we see that you don't need our help, so we're leaving. And then there were 4 police officers left. 4, no, 3, because 2 of them have taken me in their car, and the third one has taken my car, and we have gone to the police station. And just before that, the officer was asking me, please, can you show us the front of your car? And I showed them the front of my car, and they saw that there were no damage, no blood, nothing, no scars, nothing. So they were surprised. And I was surprised that they were surprised. And then more surprises were to come. So we went to the police station, and on the way, I was already trying to explain the situation as I have understood it from the 2 days before, when it was happening. I told them, well, I think it's a fake car accident, and from my point of view, it is connected with my being harassed from many years. So I have tried to explain them what it is about, and they were thinking, well, this is a kind of lunatic person. This is not so interesting. It's not so important and not so dangerous. And then we came to the police station, and then I have asked for the help of a lawyer and the visit with a doctor. And the doctor came first, and he was asking me, so do you really say that it was a fake car accident, and it was maybe the secret services who harass you since many years? Do you really think this? Yes, I really think this is really possible, sir. And do you know that when people say such things, they are never believed, and you are aware that you are not going to be believed? I say, yes, I know this is difficult to believe, but I will try to explain you little by little. And I said, you know, that's enough. I will just make my first medical report. And that was done. The medical report was obviously that I was delusional or something. I didn't see exactly what he wrote, but it was probably this. And then I saw the lawyer, and the lawyer said, well, why didn't you stop to check that the lady was not harmed? And I said, well, I didn't think about this because I was a little scared, and I was wanting to escape from this. I was afraid that the man was coming back to me, and he was maybe trying to hit me if I get out of the car. So maybe that was the only thing the lawyer told me. So I don't know if it was helping. And when we make the encounter with the police officer, the lawyer, and me, so the lawyer was not telling anything. The police officer told me that there was a complaint, that there was an accident, and severe injuries to a person I have hit with my car, and a witness that I have tried to escape from the accident spot, which is totally illegal things. Later on, I discovered that there were no complaint, no injury. No one has been sent to the medical emergencies or taken by the firemen or anything by the ambulance. The car that was in front of me and pretended that there was an accident has gone, disappeared, and vanished, and the police has no clue where it has gone and who were the two persons inside the car. Later on, I received also a message from my car insurance that there was an accident declared to this company, but they were not allowed to give me the details because it was something to deal between the headquarters of the two insurance company. And until now, they don't have the details of what has happened. So they don't know if someone has got injured. They don't know if there was a real accident. The only thing they told me recently in a letter I just received, it's that we are going to cancel your insurance contract because we are feeling you are responsible of an accident, even if we don't know nothing about this accident. And since there is an inquiry going on, done by the police on you regarding this, we are going to terminate your contract because it's written in our contract. If you are responsible, then you cannot continue with us. So the police has got my car and they have not given it back to me. So I had to inquire about this also. And it's the police who gave the car to the prosecutor of my place, the Grenoble. So the prosecutor is keeping my car under the fact that there is an inquiry still going on me and on my case. But actually, they told me that I will get my car back when the inquiry will be closed. And either it will be closed because the case will be dismissed, or it will be closed because the judge will ask me to answer some question about some criminal case or some criminal points they will come about if they really can do that. But I don't know about that. And then the police and the police officer in the police station has shown me a paper from the distance. You see, this is a medical certificate and it's showing that you have injured severely a person, and so we consider that you have made a criminal offense of a murder attempt. And he has not shown me the paper. I could not see what was written on that, even the name of the doctor or the medical circumstances and the details, nothing. And there was absolutely nothing. It was just totally fake. It's a trick that the police use to make the people confess about crimes because they don't have enough clues, and they just expect me to tell more things that they can inquire by themselves. And that's the only thing they have. It's my testimony I have made under the threat that there was a complaint and there was an injury, that there was a victim and there was an accident. So everything was fake. And after I have explained my point of view that it was something, an entrapment from the secret services, so they were not believing me. And they have called the mayor of the city to tell him, we have someone pretending something crazy. What should we do? And the mayor said, well, you should check this guy with the psychiatric emergency of the city, and then she will decide, the doctor will decide if he can be jailed or sent to the mental hospital. And I have been sent to the psychiatric emergency. And then I saw a doctor. During half an hour, I talked with her. I have explained all my life, 19 years with a short explanation. And she was thinking, oh my God, maybe this guy has suffered of something, I don't know what, maybe it is in his head, but maybe he's dangerous because maybe he wants to get some revenge, maybe that's why he has hated this lady, or maybe he can commit suicide. And because of these two suspicions that I am dangerous for myself and for others, she decided that, no, he cannot go to jail, but to mental hospital, yes. And then I have been sent to the mental hospital. the next day, actually 24 hours after being taken to the police station. So I have spent one night in the police station.
Actually, can I interject, because there are some wonderful nuggets in this already, right? And that's exactly what I mean. I asked the audience before you came on to think about, is this how normal people would act? Like normal police officers and normal, you know, psychiatrists and normal mayors. And I would say, let's start with the police officer. So apparently there's this huge, massive accident, and they are called out, and literally 4 police officers plus 2 military police to arrest you, right? I mean, because they're that dangerous, really. And then they come out, and there's supposedly to be this horrific accident, and your car doesn't even show a dent. Well, you know, all those of us who had the misfortune of falling onto a car because we fell off a bicycle, you realize that these days the cars are built such to absorb kinetic energy, and they dent like nothing else. So I doubt that you can actually fall on, you know, any car in an accident and not leave a dent. You know, it has to be something very, very special. So there's no dent. So what the hell? So there's no police officer thinking, hang on. You know, the other thing you mentioned that you think led to your, you know, sectioning is that you mentioned electromagnetic weapons or microwave weapons. And I think if a police officer hears microwave weapons and is normal as opposed to corrupt, he should think, hang on, you can cook meat with a microwave. If some idiot takes that emitter out and uses it as a weapon, he can probably cook meat with it, right? So that sounds kind of dangerous. Maybe I want to find out more about these sort of weapons this guy keeps talking about, because to me, being harassed with them for, you know, 19 years sounds like organized crime. Maybe I want to know a bit more about organized crime in my region, but no further questions, you know, none. And then you get to the psychiatrist and you tell these stories and you sound totally sane. And you just say that all of these things happened. And then what the psychiatrist thinks after 19 years, this person spontaneously, literally that week, wants to kill himself or kill somebody else. But really, like after 19 years, I mean, why didn't you do it the week before or the week before that for 19 flaming years? Like, what has changed, you know? Like, if you weren't dangerous for 19 years, like, why are you dangerous that week? It's nonsense.
Yeah. And after that, I have been sent to the mental hospital, and I have seen one more doctor, and they gave me some pill in the morning, and then they give me also some drops to drink at the night, and they are psychotropic medicine. And the next day, I was full of those drugs in my blood. And this drug, I know the side effects. So they are making paralyzation of my muscles, and I cannot move my back, I cannot move my shoulder, my neck, I cannot move the muscle of my face, and my mouth and my tongue get paralyzed. And then I swallow my tongue and I cannot breathe. And during the whole day, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, I was like a zombie, like that, walking everywhere slowly, because I wanted to keep calm, to make them understand that I am not someone afraid of anything, but I am suffering, and they must not take note of that. And I was not able to breathe. I was so it was really a creepy show. And finally, in the next day, the doctor said, yes, okay, we will remove all these drugs. And I said, yes, that's good. I want no drugs at all. And I said, no, I cannot give you no drugs. You have to understand that I have to give you one drug. And I say, oh, okay, I understand. It's because there is some connection with some authorities, and they don't want me to be without any drugs. No reply. So finally, they gave me something very light, and there was no side effect. So I say, okay, why not using this drug if it is really necessary? And then after 5 days, I have been moved to the main psychiatric ward for 2 months. I have stayed there 2 months. And they have increased the dosage, of course. They didn't want to let me with a small dosage. And the side effects have come back. So I told them, please don't do crazy things. You are poisoning me. And they were telling me strange things. But sir, we cannot believe what you say when you say that you feel hurt or damaged or poisoned, because your mental stage is not able to see clearly through yourself. So you cannot understand yourself and see your own functioning of your body, because you are completely delusional. So if you are crazy, you are not able to talk about yourself, and we cannot consider what you are telling us as possible. So we have to continue the investigation with the drug treatment to understand by yourself. So finally, I was trying to harass them about my pains, and finally they understood it was real, because I have seen maybe 2 or 3 doctors to make them admit that. So finally they decrease again the dosage. And finally the deal was, you will be allowed to get out of the mental hospital if you accept monthly injection, and one injection will contain 300 milligrams of a certain drug, and this drug will operate on you during 28 days. And every 28 days, you have to visit us to make a new injection, and you have to visit also every 2 weeks a psychiatrist for half an hour to discuss, just to be sure that your obsession are not coming back again, and to be sure that you are not going to be dangerous again. So, and the psychiatrist in the hospital, she was insisting on the fact that it is no more the car accident that is the pretext of my me being kept here. It is my ideas. It is my ideas that are keeping me here. And after the first week I was in the hospital, they have to make, it's mandatory, they have to make a report, medical report. And then this report is going to the police commissioner. We call this le préfet. So it's going to le préfet. And from the medical report after the first week in the hospital, the préfet confirmed that I have to be kept in the mental hospital for 1 month. And after this month has finished, there was one more medical report, and the report was stating that I was making some efforts to join the point of view of the doctor. And the point of view of the doctor was that my point of view was delusional, and I had to admit that it was only some foolish ideas I was having in my mind, and it is probably explainable with something else, not like the way I think it. So the report was a little better, but not so good, because she was still stating that I need to be cured still. So the Préfet de l'Isère has confirmed 3 months more in the hospital. So actually, I was supposed to get released in September. But the doctor made me talk about my own website, my own videos on YouTube. And I was trying to tell her, yes, that is true, that it can be explained by something else. Yes, maybe I am in the wrong side, and maybe you are in the right side. So, and she even made me see the videos from Catherine Orton, and she was stating, well, I don't know how, who is this lady? Who is this? I don't know, this Catherine Orton. And look at her. She doesn't look serious, and she looks silly with this aluminum behind her. So how can you believe such a woman? She's not to be believed. You should move away from all these things. And finally, I admitted all this. And finally, the doctor made the report that I can be released at the end of June. And then the Préfet de l'Isère agreed. But still, there is a warrant on me. If I make anything regarding my ideas, and if I am doing anything wrong, they can still put me back in the hospital until the month of September. And after September, maybe I will be completely free of the threat.
You know, this is so outrageous. I think all of us just listening to this story are so absolutely appalled.
Yeah, I know. But I think, you know, as we said earlier, so the first thing is you just think, what? Then you get really shocked, and then you get really angry. And then we get down to business, and we're like, let's go after these bastards. Because I can smell around. So you know what, the first thing we did when I heard about this accident, Frederick and I talked, and I said, where exactly did this accident happen? So I looked up the place where the accident actually happened. And you have to imagine it's next to a massive church. It's like Place de la République, you know, and there are two really fast car lanes. And he turned out of one fast car lane, crossed the other, and went into a side street. And there's a little parking bay in the side street, and that's where the cars were queuing. So he had crossed a really fast lane, was standing on this, and then there was the stop and go situation, and he nearly bumped the car. You know, that was the original accident.
Right.
And then what's really interesting is if you go on Google Street View and you see the little corner, there's a CCTV camera right above. Wow. It's right on the street corner. So I said, you know, Frederick, why don't you just request a CCTV? Because all this, you know, fancy shenanigans should be on the CCTV. And not just that, every French town in France has a Place de la République. It seems to me like every town. And that is usually around the massive church and around some massive site. So it's the prize square of every town. And if anything happens there, right, it's kind of like really bad publicity for the authorities. So these Place de la République are the most surveyed areas in every French town. So there's not just one CCTV. It's like it's CCTV wherever you go, even if you don't notice it, right? Because it's the Place de la République. If any idiot does something there, it's so bad for La République, right? So you've got this massive CCTV camera, and we are led to believe that the French police, who apparently came across this terrible accident by this mad lunatic who needs to be locked up, and they don't look at the CCTV? What? Like, it's the first thing you demand. The traffic camera as well. Absolutely. You know, it's a traffic camera. So you get the footage from the traffic camera. So where's the footage? And then they said, oh, you know, Frederick asked after 4 weeks, and oh, you know, the footage got deleted. I'm like, I don't think so, because it's the police's job to do the forensics.
Yeah, you can sue the police for that. You know, that's what they're doing, right? Isn't that part of their jurisdiction, their job? They're sort of monitoring the area with that camera.
Exactly. And I think we should take these guys by their testicles and say, hey, yo, Mr. Anti-Terrorism, we're so cool. Where the F is the evidence now, if you're so Mr. Anti-Terrorism, so cool? Where the F is it? You know, where is the CCTV?
And where the heck are those people, the so-called plaintiffs, who jumped on the car? Where did they disappear to, you know?
Yeah. Where are Exactly. And then, you know, I think Frederick told me that one was an older woman, the other one looked kind of like darker skinned, who could be a terrorist, and you're telling me you can't find them in France, even though they crossed a CCTV in France and have a number plate that's involved in an accident. Very strange. And then what's absolutely hilarious, I have to comment on this because it, you know, touches me personally. So Dr. Bigochy, she is a psychiatrist. Now, I have taught physics at Oxford. I taught special relativity, particle physics, and nuclear physics, okay? Now, if I had to guess, Dr. Bigochy was probably shit at physics and maths at school, which is why she decided to do the blah, blah science of psychiatry, I would guess, right? So she knows jack shit about physics. I would like to explain to Dr. Bigochy that this, what she can see, is what's also being used by most intelligence agencies if they want to shield, you know, radiation shield their chambers. You use metal. If you have a cinema and you don't want to use this, you use meshing, metal meshing, because it keeps signals out. And I've got a video where the back of my head is literally cooked, and the guy who's making measurements in my room says he's never seen stuff like that before because his measuring device maxes out. So if I turn this on and show people what the radiation level is in here, I can just, maybe it even works now, if this resets. Just a live demonstration. I have got something like 15 microwatts per square meter, or 20. If I open this up and I point it at the perps, it goes up to something like 100 or 200. And when the emitters are on, when they can see that I've taken this off, it goes up to about 900. So that's why I have this on Dr. Bigochy, right? So Dr. Bigochy, who knows jack shit about physics, about implants, about, you know, intelligence agency entrapment operations, is so sure that she knows it all, and Frederick's version is wrong, and without having done any research or having any idea about what microwave weapons even are, or current affairs or anything, she certainly knows that he's wrong. Now, is that a normal doctor? Because a normal doctor would be like, what? I mean, you're just hailing in by the police officers who frankly know jack all about psychiatry. So does the mayor. So I'm landed with a case where the mayor diagnosed, the person after a car accident. And I'm thinking, the other thing I kept thinking listening to Frederick is I lived in France. I lived on the French side when I was working at CERN because the rents are cheaper. So we were, living in France. And traveling around by car in France is deadly because the French do not drive their cars like the Germans or the British. It's like a death trap. We saw deadly accidents with cars flipped on their roof on the other lane, almost every week it felt like. There were just deadly car accidents where several people died, if not every week, then certainly every 2 weeks, as we're just commuting into CERN on a 5 or 7 kilometers trip. And we decided that France is one of the deadliest places to drive because the French are nuts compared to the Germans. And then a French police officer comes across like a pissy little accident scene and he's like, oh, major alert, there's like a mad person on the French roads. I'm like, hello, you're a police officer? If you think that's mad, you should go to Paris. You should section half of Paris because they're mental. So I'm like, what is this? You have a car accident in France? Well, yes, you have them every week. And then 24 hours later, you section somebody. And then you say, the real problem is not even the car accident. It's your ideas about government corruption and microwave weapons. And it's like, hello.
Well, that's so brilliant, Catherine, because you've pointed out that what happened over here, there was not a single dent in his car in a country that has and sees continuous accidents of a dramatic scale, as you outline.
I think the standard car in France is one with dents,
And so that's the first outrage, that his car has no dent, and then he's taken into the police station, and these people who jump on his car, who try hard to injure themselves and are still unable to injure themselves, they are not taken into the police station. They're not questioned because they appear to me to be the loons in the matter.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Hello, police. I'm reporting a car accident that almost happened. And because it almost happened, I jumped on the man's car to make him stay, to wait for a policeman to come out to an accident that almost happened. Why don't you put those people in the psychiatric unit, for Pete's sake?
Those people need to be in the psychiatric unit. They need the psychiatrist to come out and take a look at their mental processes. Instead, you have the innocent driver being carted off to the police station, and then you have doctors and mayors being trotted out. I mean, it's total entrapment, beginning to end.
And the people disappear.
The mayor suffers from delusions, thinking he's a psychiatrist.
Yeah, and it starts diagnosing and giving prescriptions, apparently, as to how to pull in other doctors and other psychiatrists. And the other most appalling thing is to demand that Frederick be committed to a psychiatric institution and then be dosed with his horrific psychotropics. That blows my mind. It's like, what are the laws in France that could possibly permit that without somebody's consent to simply dose them with horrific drugs?
Like, paralyze your breathing for a day. I mean, you take medication that makes you feel worse. What sort of doctors are they? They are criminals. They're criminals. This woman needs to be struck off forever.
And I think there are psychiatrists in this country who are perfectly aware. I think they're called dissident psychiatrists or dissident psychologists, people who know what these drugs actually do and who actually protest the use of these drugs. So there are psychiatrists in this country listening to this possibly, let's hope, who are perfectly aware that what was done to Frederick is nothing less than criminal.
It is. And you know what, when he was asking for a lower dose and they said, we have to give you something. Well, I mean, that's big fat question mark, because if you want to determine what's actually wrong with somebody, you want to observe them first and find out, so what exactly, you know, is he like when it's not influenced from outside. And then if you have to buy because you, I don't know, you think the mayor's watching you, well, give him vitamin C, give him a Tic Tac, you know, something.
Was it the mayor that demanded that he be given something? It's really great. Hey, listen, this is a great conversation, and I'm really thankful, Frederick, that you were able to join us, and hopefully you'll get with myself or Ramola and do a full-blooded interview, because this is just great stuff.
This is incredible. There's so much to say about this. And in fact, I want to get everybody back together again and talk about it. You know,
Right.
I'd love to do it on my own show, certainly, Frederick, if you're available.
Yeah, no problem.
Wonderful.
That would be great. But we have to end this one and bring this Techno Crime Fighters Forum number 16 to a close. Thank everybody for their contributions. We're kind of running late, so I'm not going to ask for final comments unless somebody really wants something, and raise your hand, and then we'll go. But thank you very much, Frederick. What a great story. We're going to feast on this for a long time, and hopefully you can get released, and they'll start treating you like a human being again. Thank you very much. That's the end of episode 16, Techno Crime Fighters Forum, and we're signing off.